Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Folks on Zoom, just making sure you can hear us. If someone could just pop a yes, I can in the chat, that would be helpful. And I will speak louder because obviously you're not hearing me through the mic. This is going to get taking some getting used to. I haven't done a lot of hybrid events. So I'm Rachel Ruttenberg. I'm the Deputy Committeeperson for the Democratic Party of Evanston. And we are starting this new series, which we're calling our Policy Salon, which is just a discussion event on one public policy topic each month. And so for the first one, I had actually just had the pleasure of meeting Dan with FairVote Illinois. And I knew that we were wanting to start this series on May 31st, which is a little bit of like a busy day for folks. And I said, Dan, are you free on May 31st? Let's do ranked choice voting as the first one. And so I was so happy that he said yes, because after the primary election cycle that we just went through, there have just been so many questions about ranked choice voting. Don't we have that in Evanston? What happened? How would that have been different? And I know that, some of the ugliness we felt in the Democratic primary may have been experienced differently if we had ranked choice voting. And so it's our pleasure to put this series together. One other housekeeping item, if you have an idea for a topic that you want to do one of these events on, please let us know. Our email address is info@evanstondems.com, or you can just mention it to Kathy or to me or to anyone else you know is involved with DPOE. DPOE is a member and volunteer-driven organization. We don't have paid staff. And so we all do this just because we're passionate about it and because of the experience to get to learn together, but also, pull people together during the election cycles, get out the vote, and support great Democratic candidates. So with all that, I'm going to introduce the folks that we're speaking with today. It's true that we had Dan on the invitation, and then as a last minute ad, we got Alisa, who, by the way, is an Evanstonian. So it's so great that she gets to be part of this conversation too. But I'll pass this over to you to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alisa Kaplan. I'm the Executive Director of Reform for Illinois. Is this where you want me to talk about my organization?
Either way. Very casual.
Okay. Reform for Illinois was founded about 30 years ago to address money in politics in Illinois and all other kinds of corruption and basically obstacles to making your democracy work well. So we work on issues that we believe will make democracy more responsive in Illinois and make the government serve the people it's supposed to serve instead of a handful of wealthy or well-connected people. We got involved in ranked choice voting because we believe that was one of those issues, that it would make our democracy stronger and more responsive to the people it's supposed to serve. We helped spearhead the movement to get ranked choice voting adopted for municipal elections in 2022. As you'll find out, that effort is ongoing. But I'm really glad to be here and appreciate Rachel for hosting and Dan for being here.
Thank you. I'm Dan Ashurst. I'm the Executive Director of FairVote Illinois, which is a statewide organization that advocates laser focused on just ranked choice voting. So we're able to dedicate a lot of time and resources to just that issue as we focus exclusively on it. We currently are leading efforts for ranked choice voting in local municipalities in Illinois to make Illinois kind of a local pro-democracy innovation hub. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Thank you. So passing it right back to you, just remind us, what is ranked choice voting and what are the benefits of it?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to start by asking everyone gathered here a question. I'm assuming that probably people who are coming to a local Democratic Party meeting probably voted in the recent Democratic Party primary. And I wanted to ask how many people here felt that when you opened your primary ballot, you saw 10 candidates for US Senate or 10 candidates for US House, did you feel that you had to vote for, the top 2 or 3 polling candidates? You felt like you could only really choose between like 2 or 3 people out of those 10. You couldn't really cast your vote for like one of the lower polling candidates.
You mean by wasting your vote? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So you felt like practically, realistically, yeah, someone who could realistically win. Yeah. So ranked choice voting attempts to solve that problem. So it's a simple upgrade to the way that we vote that allows voters to rank their candidates in order of preference rather than being forced to pick just one. So it has a lot of research-backed benefits. It gives voters more choices. It tends to improve representation for women and people of color. And it also tends to disincentivize the kind of negative attack ads that we see in political campaigns and that we saw in the recent primaries. So those are kind of the primary issues that RCV is trying to solve.
Thanks so much. So Evanston, as we all likely know, passed a referendum for ranked choice voting in 2022. What you may not realize is also Oak Park did so in 2024, and Skokie did so in 2025. So we now have 3 municipalities in Cook County that have passed a referendum for ranked choice voting. So if and when that is implemented, what would change for voters in those communities? And I'll pass it to you.
Well, all of those towns passed it for local municipal elections. So it wouldn't have affected, unfortunately, the congressional primaries, although I think the primaries are a fantastic illustration of why we need ranked choice voting. But we only have the power to pass ranked choice voting for our own elections. So we would have, in Evanston, in all of the cities, it would have affected all city offices. Is that all your questions? You would need, sorry, you can, sorry. You would need state legislation to pass it for congressional primaries or statewide offices, or basically, yeah, any of those. Because the states run the elections, yes. And there are, I think, is Maine the only one now that has ranked choice voting for some federal elections?
Maine and Alaska.
Maine, right, Alaska. I forgot about Alaska. Yeah, Maine and Alaska have passed a legislation that affects federal elections. Yes, because the states run their federal elections, they can do that.
Yep, and I would just add to that too, you probably heard about the New York City mayoral primary. That's another example of a primary election that used ranked choice voting. There's currently, as Alisa mentioned, there's 2 states that use it for all of their major federal elections. And there's over 50 municipalities nationwide. So it's starting to grow as a central reform for improving our democracy and giving voters more choices. The main benefit I think that we would have noticed in these previous elections is that candidates would have tended to, in, for example, the US Senate or federal offices, we would have seen a lot less money poured into attack ads, because with ranked choice voting, you're actually systematically disincentivized from attacking other candidates that you're running against. Because if you're trying to get a voter's second choice, not just their first choice, you actually don't want to be perceived as being mean to a voter's first choice. So naturally, it actually incentivizes candidates to say, to work together, for example, and say, if you're putting me as your first choice, consider putting this candidate as your second choice, and vice versa. So we see this coalition building that's particularly good for partisan primaries, because in a partisan primary, if you're running in the Democratic primary, for example, you want to, at the end of the day, be able to say, we're all Democrats. We don't need to be attacking each other. Or if Republicans, same thing, we're all Republicans. We don't need to be attacking each other. Ranked choice voting makes that not only possible, but it actually incentivizes that behavior from candidates.
Thank you so much. So to be clear, Evanston passed the referendum in 2022. And we've had a mayoral election since then, a municipal cycle, and notably had a lot of folks run for, actually Barb is on Zoom, she could tell me. What was it? Was it 13 candidates, or you would know too, 13 candidates running for 4 school board seats? Something like that. 15 candidates. Oh, Barb's going to put it in the chat. We had a lot of school board candidates. And it was hard because, those are races where people, we don't put a lot of paid communications into letting voters know who those folks are. So we had that cycle already, and obviously we didn't have ranked choice voting. So Alisa, what are the current challenges with having this implemented in Evanston?
Ugh. Well, first of all, I should say that the referendum that we passed would not have affected school board elections, unfortunately, because the school board is a separate entity. And I don't even know, I think we did explore this, but we'd have to figure out how you would, if we would be able to pass that. I don't know. It's an interesting question, how you would get what? It would have to be state law. So
school board wouldn't have mattered anyway.
School board wouldn't have mattered anyway. Actually, but yes, we would have had ranked choice voting in the last Evanston municipal election, except that the Cook County clerk has refused to implement ranked choice voting. We strongly believe that Evanston had, as a home rule municipality, the right to implement ranked choice voting under the Illinois Constitution. The Illinois Constitution is actually pretty clear that home rule municipalities are allowed to choose the manner of selection of their representatives. And we have previous legal opinions from Attorney General Lisa Madigan, for example, saying explicitly that home rule municipalities can adopt ranked choice voting. But the clerk is taking the position that we don't have the authority to do that. And so it's been now, oh my goodness, we passed this in late 2022. So we have our organization, Reform for Illinois, and an Evanston voter here have filed a lawsuit against the Cook County clerk, and we've been engaged in litigation for a few years already, trying to get this passed, trying to get the clerk to implement it. So it's been a real challenge, and it goes a lot further than Evanston, and the issue actually goes a lot further than ranked choice voting, because if home rule municipalities don't have this authority to pass this election reform, it's very possible that they don't have the authority to pass any number of other local legislation. So it affects not just Oak Park. Oak Park now is in a holding pattern. Skokie is in a holding pattern to find out either the result of this litigation, or I know this is something that Dan has been working on too, to get maybe some legislation in Springfield that can reaffirm that we have this right under the Illinois Constitution. But in the meantime, we are awaiting the results of the lawsuit, which again, we strongly believe we're right. So we hope we get a favorable outcome in the coming months. Yeah.
Well, on the part of the Cook County clerk, do we know what their arguments are that they do not want to implement it?
Yeah, they're arguing. Oh, sorry. You asked what the Cook County clerk's arguments were for not wanting to implement it. They're arguing a few different things. They're taking issue with some of the wording in the referendum, which we don't believe is, we don't agree with, obviously. It's very difficult in general. The standard for passing a referendum in Illinois is higher than almost anywhere else in the country, as far as we know, because they require that the referendum be extremely specific. And that ends up being kind of anti-democratic, because it makes it harder to get referenda passed, or, through the courts. Makes it easier to take issue with wording and things like that. The more concerning for us argument is this home rule argument. And they're basically saying this isn't in state law. And so you can't use it. And our argument is, well, home rule municipalities have the ability to legislate in areas that are not preempted by state law. That's kind of the whole point of home rule authority. So that's our position. I mean, we, Reform for Illinois, believe that there are political reasons that the clerk doesn't want to implement this. As we all know, elected officials get invested in the rules of the game that they know how to win. And so this would shake things up and in a way that maybe some in the political establishment would not be thrilled with. So and the clerks are often resistant to change in general. You know, it's more work. They have to do something different. And so all of these factors are in play. Yeah.
Yes, you mentioned at first that some of the comments were against the wording in the policy.
Yeah.
In the proposed policy, I was wondering, you don't have to go into detail, but what kind of wording they were against?
They are arguing that we don't account for the possibility of a very rare event where there would be a tie in the lower, below, not in first place, but below first place. We think the referendum does account for that in the wording, and we have other arguments about why that shouldn't affect the validity of the referendum, but that's their argument.
If I can, I could just add on to that too. FairVote Illinois ran follow-up referendums in Oak Park and Skokie, and we had to make the referendum like half a page long in response to the court arguments that the clerk was making. And so it leads to the situation where you have like voters have to read this huge paragraph because the referendum has to be super specific. But I would also say too, do you have a question?
So, my comment is I'm a Skokie resident and I did vote on that, and it was supposed to be, of course, self-executing languages, what the Illinois Supreme Court has held on the issue of referendum. So I was a yes vote on that issue. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So just to repeat for the people on Zoom, so a member of the audience was saying that they voted yes on the Skokie referendum, and the Supreme Court of Illinois, the main argument that they've had about ranked choice voting is that any referendum has to be self-executing. So it has to be extremely specific. And to the point that Alisa was making about like why we're fighting this so hard, it may seem like, well, this is just, it's, you know, maybe just one place in Illinois. Now it's 3 places. But if Evanston is allowed to implement this, then the entire state of Illinois is allowed to implement this. Any home rule community in Illinois can implement ranked choice voting. Not only ranked choice voting, but they actually have the home rule authority to implement other voting systems that they want to use. And so it makes Illinois into a democratic innovation hub for the United States. So that's why we really think this is such a critically important fight. Yeah.
And another comment I offer as well is like in November 2024, I also had the opportunity to vote on the matter of term limits for local elected officials.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes, for mayor, clerk, and trustee. And that passed 83% in scope.
Yeah. So an audience member made the point, and actually I was talking to Alisa about this as well the other day, that this Evanston lawsuit is centering around home rule authority for Evanston to make policy about its own elections. And Skokie had term limit referendum. So if this home rule authority is upheld in its fullest form, as we think that our state constitution intends it to be, it allows home rule municipalities to do all kinds of pro-democracy reform referendums, like term limits or public campaign financing, all of these other things. So it's really one of the most important discussions that's happening in Illinois right now that is about pro-democracy reform.
Thank you so much. We just got just wonky enough. I love it. I'm like, really, we're really getting going. Okay, so Evanston passed ranked choice voting in 2022, but now, May 31st of 2026, our election system has way more threats, and we have so many more concerns related to how we cast our votes and how they're counted. And so obviously recently, the Voting Rights Act has been gutted by the Supreme Court, and states are redrawing districts to dilute the voices of communities of color. Where does ranked choice voting fit into that? And is there evidence that ranked choice voting helps get out the vote among communities of color or helps level the playing field for candidates of color? How can we think about ranked choice voting in this current context?
Yeah, so in the United States, as you said, the primary tool that we use to ensure minority representation was the Voting Rights Act. And I say was because we had the recent Supreme Court decision that dramatically reduced the power of the Voting Rights Act. Ranked choice voting can actually be used as another tool for addressing and ensuring minority representation. So there's a form of ranked choice voting called proportional ranked choice voting. I won't get too much into detail with it, but suffice it to say that right now we elect a representative from a single district gets a single representative. There's a form of ranked choice voting that allows you to do multi-winner districts. So in one district, you can have 3 representatives, for example, is common. And this actually really significantly helps minority representation to the extent that there was a municipality in Michigan where a federal court actually ordered them to use proportional ranked choice voting in order to ensure minority representation under the Voting Rights Act. So ranked choice voting was actually used as a VRA remedy to ensure minority representation because you were able to get multiple people in that district representing. So it ensured that there was a representative for communities of color. There was a representative for different communities in that district. That was in East Point, Michigan. And we also actually have seen some really incredible research on ranked choice voting's effect for representation for women. That's one of the most dramatic places we've seen it. In New York City, in one ranked choice voting election, right after they implemented it, the representation of women in their city council doubled. And it was the first time in the history of New York City that they had a majority women city council, and it was like by a few seats. And that actually, same thing happened in Portland, Oregon. So it tends to lead to better representation where women tend to win about half of the seats, which is what you would expect in a democratic society. And you'd see more proportional representation to different voting groups.
Add just a couple of things to that. So the type of ranked choice voting that they adopted in Oak Park actually would result in proportional representation. So it would, because they have an at-large, again, we don't want to get too in the weeds, but because they have an at-large village council instead of in Evanston where we have single member districts. And in Skokie, there's a combination of the two. Yeah, it's an emerging field looking how proportional representation could solve a lot of the problems, not just for ethnic or other kinds of minorities, but also for ideological minorities, people who really care about the environment or other issues. The other thing I wanted to say was, I think to Dan's point about the powerful effect this could have on women and other types of representation, I've known candidates. I knew a woman candidate who said she would knock on people's doors and they would say, I really wish we had ranked choice voting because then I would vote for you, but I don't think you have any chance of winning, so I'm not going to vote for you. So a lot of less conventional candidates, whether that's women or anything else, who put themselves on the line to run for office, people won't vote for them if they think that they might not have a great chance of winning. But in fact, it turns out some of these candidates do have a good chance of winning. They just need people to be able to believe in them and not feel like they're wasting their vote. So that's where we get some of these effects.
Yes, please.
So I just want to make sure I understand how this would have worked, for instance, in the Democratic primary for the House. With ranked choice voting, would it also apply in the actual election?
Not just the primary. So we had an audience member ask about, understanding how it would have worked in the Democratic primary in March, but would it work in the general as well?
We would need state legislation for that as well. And in Illinois in particular, well, I guess in a lot of places now, the primary is where a lot of the action is at because the districts are so safe, right? Which is why we think it's particularly important for it to exist in primaries. But I can certainly think of general elections in my lifetime where I would have liked to see ranked choice voting. I can think of, well, we're dating myself, but Florida in the year 2000, for example. There's any number of elections where there was a spoiler and people feel disenfranchised because they can't vote for that maybe third party candidate that they want to vote for, or that long shot that they want to vote for. This would eliminate that problem.
Well, I was going to say I'm getting political, but we are here
Yeah.
for politics. I'm just thinking about how in the general, just to think this all through, say in California where a lot of people are running for governor. I haven't followed that really closely, so I might be speaking and I might be not totally informed. But if you have say a really strong MAGA Republican candidate, and then you have 6 interesting Democratic candidates, and then the Republican side all comes out to vote, doesn't that one have an advantage because the 6 all split their votes?
So we're asking about multiple candidates coming up for running for one party and then one clear candidate for the other party, and whether the multiple candidates dilute their vote.
Dan wants to
take that one.
Yeah.
So that's actually a reform that often gets paired with ranked choice voting. It's a different reform called open primaries that California has adopted. So ranked choice voting is different from open primaries. California's implementation of open primaries does create concerns about vote splitting. Ranked choice voting, if we were to adopt it in Illinois, it would be under the same primary system where you get a Democratic primary ballot. It's just now you get to rank your candidates rather than having to just pick one. So it kind of limits the issue that you're talking about.
In general, you have the one Democratic, the one Republican, maybe an independent, and it would give the independent more of a chance. But that's how it would play out.
That's the hope. Yeah, we hope to eventually get to where all of our elections are RCV, so that we can have more choices regardless of the election.
I've heard that there are forces in Alaska trying to reverse the ranked choice voting there. Can you tell us about the status there and what that means for ranked choice voting nationally? That does apply to the congressional level there, which is notable.
Yes. So Jane is asking about repeal efforts in Alaska. So Alaska adopted ranked choice voting statewide for primaries and every major election in the state. There have been, so it passed via referendum originally, and there's been, I think, 2 or 3 efforts to repeal it in Alaska by referendum. So there's a second. Yeah. So the first one failed, and then I think there was another one in 2024 to repeal it again. And now there's yet another one that's starting up. There'll be a third. There's this group that is still trying to repeal it. All of those have failed. So every time that they voted on it, Alaskan voters have said that they want to keep using it. And then there's a group that basically keeps organizing to say, are you sure? Are you sure you want to keep using it? And then they keep saying, yes, we're sure.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. The California primary is kind of a mess. They call it a jungle primary, and it's got all kinds of problems that are unrelated to the top 2 system, which can block out, which can block out you can end up with a situation like you were talking about. But you actually brought up a really good point about vote splitting, which is another thing that ranked choice voting can help get rid of, help address. And that's where you have one candidate who is, you have several different candidates that may be ideologically similar, for example, and then one candidate who's different. And even if you have more people voting for, well, let me take a different example. Let's say you have, because I've seen this happen here, you have one party favorite candidate in a primary here, and then you've got 4 other candidates that are maybe not anti-party, but not the favorite, right? Or and we've seen how they can split the vote. Let's just call it the pro-party and the anti-party, even that's oversimplistic. They can split the vote, and you can end up with someone who maybe got 20% of the vote, 80% of the people didn't want that candidate, but we still ended up with them because of vote splitting. So that's actually a really important element of ranked choice voting and how it could prevent paradoxical, silly outcomes like that.
One of the elections for November in Illinois comes to mind with regards to this, and that is the person to succeed Chuy Garcia. Right. He announced very late that he wasn't going to run for re-election. His chief of staff already had petitions ready, filed them. Everybody else pretty much didn't have time to put petitions together. There have been now a couple who have filed as independent party candidates who 3, thank you. Very knowledgeable. And so I imagine that some of that vote splitting could occur in that race, and that would be a prime example potentially for state legislation for ranked choice voting on the congressional race in a general.
Right, but this also gives you an idea of why maybe the powers that be aren't so thrilled about ranked choice voting, because it does.
Because it seems like right now, it seems like right now there's, I mean, obviously a trend in the country where people are saying like, let's look at a new generation of leadership. And then it makes you feel like, well, I think some people will look at, well, I really want something fresh and new, but everything's behind the quote establishment candidate. So I'm just going to vote for somebody who doesn't win, and the establishment candidate wins, and we don't have any change.
Yeah, that's exactly right. With a new generation of, if you want a new generation of leadership, a new generation of democracy, I think is required. Like, we don't really have a super democratic system right now, and so it leads to more establishment candidates having a huge advantage. Ranked choice voting would help us get a much more representative system that allows new people to join the race.
Can you check? Are there any questions that are on? Thank you. Oh, we have more questions here. Wonderful. Yes.
Well, I think you touched on something that's really important, and I'm just looking at the age of the people in the room. I don't know the demographics of the people on Zoom, but ranked choice voting and such reforms seem like they would be primed to attract the attention of younger voters who are really boiling for a change. But, are they all at the soccer games? Is that why we don't have?
This is a pretty good room. This is in terms of our rooms. This is so we're there's an audience member making a comment that young people should be attracted to this type of policy issue and advocating for it.
To draw them into this issue.
And then there needs to be promotion of it among young people. Yeah. Do we want to hear from a young person? Yes.
Well, it's actually tangentially related to that, but I was just wondering on the issue of turnout, how ranked choice voting actually affects turnout, because I understand that even a lot of my peers, I'm a Northwestern student, they don't even know one candidate, much less 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And also just speaking of the fact that like I come from a minority community, people don't even know who their like elected official is in my hometown. So it just makes me think that like what is the effort more that the average voter or the average citizen would have to do, and how would that affect turnout?
So there's a question about both how this would affect turnout, but then also the education needed to be able to pull off a ranked choice voting ballot as a voter.
Okay, can I take that one? So that's a great multi-layered question. Ranked choice voting definitely does not decrease turnout. The question of whether it increases turnout, some studies have found that it does. Some studies have found that it basically stays the same. One pretty robust result they have is with ranked choice voting, for example, in the way we would do it in Evanston, you would get rid of a primary. And primaries historically, actually in Evanston, it's either a primary and a runoff or a general and I never really know what a primary and a general or a general and a runoff, right? It's the same thing. But you would only have to show up for one election. And there you can see that you would have more people would show up for that one election. And, historically, there's very low turnout at one of those elections. So if you have it in the primary and, 20% or sometimes less 15% of people show up, then those people who advance to the runoff are chosen by a very, very small portion of people. So that's one way in which it does increase the number of people who can participate in choosing their representatives. As for your other question, first of all, nobody has to rank more than one person if they don't want. So that's totally optional. You can go and rank one person if you don't know anything about the others. There have been study after study after study that have shown that people are perfectly capable of using ranked choice voting across socioeconomic classes, across ethnic groups, across everything. It's just not that complicated. There's way more. When I look at my ballot, there are things, the Metropolitan Water District, choose 3, choose 4, or the school boards, or there's all kinds of things that people have to wrap their arms around when they look at their ballot. But this is, you know how to rank your favorite ice creams or your favorite ice cream flavors or your favorite top 10 songs or anything like this. This is just like that. So we have not only intuitively when I ask people, like, do you rank things in your everyday life? Do you have a favorite ice cream? But also in the empirical evidence, we see that people really do know how to use it, and they do use it. They do use their rankings. It may make them more interested in some of the other candidates,
I kind of got a follow on to that, though, that I was hearing on the issue of voters feeling overwhelmed with multi-candidate races and not necessarily feeling they've got the time or the instinct to educate themselves about multiple candidates. But they're here and learning about one candidate that, okay, I'm just going to vote for them. And ranked choice voting presents them with, in some ways, for some people, it might feel like a mental obligation to learn about more candidates. So you were answering about the mechanics of executing ranked choice voting. Yes, people tend to know how to do it. I think there's also going to be a subtle motivation to learn about a couple more, and that might feel like a weight to some voters. But I think for many other voters, it will feel like happiness.
So there's more unpacking of the concept that people would need to become, whether they would need to become more educated about their choices on the ballot than not. And it might help slightly just because of motivation, but it's not going to be a total game changer, both, it sounds like, in turnout or in education. It just might help slightly, is what I'm hearing from you, Dan.
Yeah, I could add on a little bit to that too, in saying that the concern is certainly very legitimate, that anytime we make any kind of change to our election system, we want to make sure that people actually understand it. And there is really good research that says that voter education is extremely important for RCV. You'll see that you'll often hear there are older studies that found that voters of color were less likely to rank multiple candidates on their ballot. And so the argument there was voters of color are less likely to rank candidates, so ranked choice voting doesn't work as well for them and leads to more exhausted ballots. Since then, there has been new research that's peer reviewed. The earlier research was not peer reviewed, that suggests that voters of color rank at about the same rates as everyone else. Everyone understands the concept of first choice, second choice, third choice pretty intuitively. And I like the way you framed it too, Jane, about it's an invitation for people to be able to rank a couple more choices.
Gail has had her hand up for a while.
Since we voted in Evanston on ranked choice, the clerk has changed. I'm guessing the new clerk has the same opinion as the other.
So Gail's question is about the new clerk. Mm-hmm.
Where it is and how it moves forward and how we can pass.
Great. So previously, when Evanston passed the referendum, Karen Yarborough was our county clerk, and now it's Monica Gordon. And so has there been any difference? And has that changed the progress of the litigation?
The new clerk has taken the same position as the old clerk. And so we're still, the name on the lawsuit has changed, but the lawsuit remains the same. Where we are with it is we got last year, the year before, I don't know, I've lost track by now. The wheels of justice are very slow. We got an unfavorable opinion from the lower court, including on this home rule issue, which was pretty astonishing to us. And in fact, the Illinois Municipal League was alarmed by that finding as well, that home rule, that claim about home rule authority, and filed an amicus brief in our appeal. We appealed to the appellate court and got a very strange decision, basically saying that we needed to include the city of Evanston in the lawsuit, which we still don't truly understand why that was necessary, but the city of Evanston did join the lawsuit, so they're now a party to the lawsuit. And the decision also made some other suggestions to the lower court when they kicked the case back to them, suggesting that they kind of reconsider this home rule issue and some other things. The clerk's obligation to Evanston voters, things like that. So it was done very subtly and obliquely, so we're not exactly sure how that's going to play out in the lower court. We've refiled the lawsuit with the lower court now, and that's where we are. So we're basically, back at the beginning, except not quite, because all the legal grounds have been set, but waiting for a decision from the lower court. And if necessary, we'll appeal that as well.
Thank you. So let's move on to the statewide policy opportunities. Actually, it's May 31st, so we're expecting the Illinois legislature to wrap up its business by midnight. Notably, you two aren't there, which makes me sad that maybe we don't have pending legislation for ranked choice voting. But can you tell us about any bills that are currently filed or things that you may be working on related to ranked choice voting?
Sure. Yeah. So there is legislation currently in Springfield that would reaffirm municipalities' home rule authority to adopt ranked choice voting. So it would essentially just avoid the court problem and just cut through the arguments directly. We don't expect that to pass this year, obviously, it being May 31st, and I would be there if it would. But we're hoping to, FairVote Illinois' action arm is hoping to push for local option legislation, as we call it, next year that would, again, reaffirm that authority. And we often find that local option legislation for ranked choice voting, getting to implement it at the local level is a gateway to being able to implement it elsewhere. So if Illinois allows people to vote to adopt ranked choice voting for their local municipalities, that's going to give clerks the experience that they need actually administering a ranked choice voting election, which helps us if we decide we want to use it in primaries or larger elections, we can more easily do that. So we are pushing for legislation right now that would, again, reaffirm Evanston and Oak Park and Skokie's ability to adopt RCV.
Is there an existing bill?
There is, yes. So it's SB 2004. Yeah, so it'll have a different number next year. And we're working to kind of refine and expand on the text of it. We're working with it's Senator Laura Murphy, as well as Senator David Kaler of Peoria and Senator Robert Peters are also chief sponsors.
So what can Evanston residents, Skokie residents, or basically anybody that wants to support ranked choice voting do to help right now? Are there specific actions that you would suggest?
Sure. I think your elected officials need to know that you care about this. So right now, the Cook County is where Cook County runs the elections, and they're the ones who are kind of standing in the way of implementation here. So I would encourage you to contact your Cook County representatives, contact the clerk, Monica Gordon, and tell them you care about this. Your Cook County Commissioner is Josina Morita. Contact the president of the Cook County Board, Tony Preckwinkle, and let them know that this is something that you're watching and that you care about. And Dan can talk a little more about other types of support.
Yeah, in addition to contacting your elected officials, so you can go to fairvoteillinois.org, and we have a form where you can contact your elected officials directly about this. In addition to that, you also can join our email list there, because we use that to send, we don't spam people with emails. We specifically use it to issue things like calls to action. So if there's a particular opportunity where we need people to help push this forward, that's what we use that for. Hearings and education opportunities. Yes. Witness slips, yeah. Yeah, so for example, in Springfield, there's often, when a bill is moving through Springfield, there'll be committee hearings and people can call in advance and say, I support this. And it really helps to push it through committees. So that'll be important next year. FairVote Illinois also maintains a robust volunteer program. If you're interested in, if you like are hearing us talk about this and you feel like this is something that you really want to work on, we have a very extensive volunteer program that works to educate voters. So we go to farmers markets and we go to local events and just talk to people about RCV and say, this democracy as it currently exists is only giving people two realistic choices when they go to vote, and ranked choice voting would actually be the next step into the future. And so it gives people a lot of hope. It's a very fun issue to work on because most people already agree on it. So if you do have an interest in volunteering, you can go to fairvoteillinois.org and sign up as a volunteer.
Gotcha.
Ask about Robin Gable's position. She is our local representative in the legislature, and she also has a lot of clout because of the party leadership position she holds. So has she been silent? Has she been a supporter? Is she a roadblock?
She endorsed the local effort, if you recall. Oh, sorry. Jane asked about the position of Representative Robin Gable, who's Evanston's. Yeah. Right. And is in Democratic leadership. Have you approached Representative Gable recently?
We've not confirmed it.
Okay. All right. I guess there's nothing that we can say about that on the record right now. But
we plan to, certainly.
Yeah.
Yet, but we plan.
I'm so bad at this. Also sign up for our mailing list at reformforillinois.org. I like always forget that part. Reformforillinois.org, and you can get our updates about the exciting updates about the lawsuit as they come in at a glacial pace, and the other issues that we work on, like campaign finance reform and ethics reform and other types of election reform and fun stuff like that. And I did want to put in a plug for FairVote's volunteer program because they just did a tremendous job here in Evanston. They and the DPOE with Jane at the helm was incredible in doing a lot of the groundwork, knocking on doors and going to the farmers market, the hard work, but also the fun work, I think, of talking to people and making sure that we got to an 83% win on our referendum in Evanston and a similar number in Oak Park and a really robust majority in Skokie as well. So it's a right. So good, strong majority. So so yeah, I encourage you to sign up and get involved in all of those various ways.
Amazing. So before we wrap, I just want to plug our next event. We hope to do these public policy deep dives on the last Sunday of the month. I don't yet have the topic for June's, but I will be in touch as soon as we have that booked. Same time, same place. I do want to, though, plug our June 14th No Kings Unity Block Party, which is going to be at Church and Dodge at the lot right here. And it's going to be around the same time as that disgusting UFC fight on the White House lawn. So it's going to be our version of a patriotic Flag Day celebration. So please bring your families. It's free. We're partnering with Indivisible Evanston and Pink Poster Club. We'll have NAACP North Shore there as well as League of Women Voters registering people to vote. There'll be ice cream. There'll be a DJ, there'll be dancing, there'll be some crafts. So it's going to be pretty fun. So please come to that. And we will be in touch. And if you have ideas for other topics for this type of deep dive discussion, please let me know. But thank you so much. Thank you so much to our panelists, and definitely consider getting involved with them as well. Thank you. Or leave or do something. And I think you can just end.